This man on your screen executed a criminal in Chicago with a headshot and slit his throat when the criminal tried to double-cross him, and is still roaming free today in the streets of Chicago, while this man murdered a bookmaker by stabbing, strangling, and torturing. We're talking about some of the deadliest mafia bosses still active and bloodthirsty in Chicago today. So let's start with the top boss, Salvatore D Delarentis. Sally D was appointed head of Lake County, Illinois in 1988. In 1993, he was charged with Ernest Rocky Infelice, Louis Tomatoes Marino, Robert Bobby the Gabit Bavia, Harry Ellman, Marco the Mover D'Amico, and others in the Good Ship Lollipop case. This case involved mob-related killings committed by the Cicero Street crew. He was given a 17-year term of imprisonment and was released in 2006. After this, Salvatore D Delarentis headed the organization firmly from the early part of the 2010s. And then, in 2014, Delarentis officially stepped into the role of boss after the notorious John No-Nose DeFranzo decided to retire. However, the story doesn't end there. DeFranzo still kept a hand in the outfit affairs, offering his wisdom until Alzheimer's claimed him in 2018. As for Delarentis, his diplomacy earned him the respect and influence that eventually catapulted him to the top of the Chicago outfit. Well, he is currently in his 80s and in poor health, so these days he is using his right hand, Albert "Albie the Falcon" Vena, who is next on our list to carry out his operations. Albert is often whispered about in Chicago as one of the most feared men in the city's criminal underworld. Some people also call him the modern-day Anthony Tony the Ant Spilotro, a former mafia boss who died in 1986 and was notorious for his brutality. Vena's rise in recent years has revitalized the Grand Avenue crew, restoring much of the power it lost after the devastating Operation Family Secrets takedown in the late 2000s. Vena has always been stone cold in his approach. There are rumors around Vena's possible involvement in the infamous 1983 gangland murder of Alan Dorfman, a Teamsters official with deep ties to the mob. Dorfman's death, portrayed in the film Casino, 1995, remains unsolved, with Vena and fellow mobster Joseph the Builder Andriacchi considered prime suspects. In 1992, Vena was indicted for the brutal murder of small-time criminal Sam Taglia, but he was acquitted at trial the following year. Taglia was found shot in the head, and with his throat slit, his body stuffed into a car trunk. Vena was seen with him just hours before the murder. When police came to arrest Vena, he attempted to run them over with his car, a testament to his defiance. Today, despite his violent reputation, Vena remains careful, rarely caught on wiretaps, helps Solly D, and maintains a low profile in the city. But not every boss is so elusive, and one such example is Michael Sarno. He is a key figure in the Chicago outfit, is rumored to still hold significant sway over the Cicero Street crew despite his imprisonment. Known as one of the most influential mobsters in the city, Sarno was sentenced to 25 years in prison on February 8, 2012, after being convicted on racketeering charges. His arrest and subsequent conviction were seen as a major blow to the Cicero crew, which has long been one of the most powerful factions within the outfit. Sarno's criminal career dates back to February 7, 1990, when he was named in a massive 42-count indictment along with 19 other Chicago mobsters. Initially held without bond, Sarno was later released on bond in May 1990, thanks to a ruling by U.S. District Judge Ann Claire Williams. In January 1992, he was convicted of running an illegal gambling ring, and by August 18, 1993, he was sentenced to 6.5 years in federal prison. After his release on October 20, 1999, Sarno resumed his role in the Chicago underworld. Even behind bars, Sarno remains an active player in the outfit's affairs, offering advice and resolving disputes over the phone. While Sarno's power endures behind prison walls, we move to the next boss, Rudy Fratto. Rudy the Chin Fratto comes from a lineage deeply entrenched in the Chicago mob. He is the nephew of the late Louis Fratto, a well-known associate of the infamous Al Capone. He hasn't let prison time stop him from diving back into the Chicago mob life. The 80-year-old mobster was released in November 2013 after serving a year in prison for construction bid rigging. Since then, he's reportedly returned to his old stomping grounds in Elmwood Park, reconnecting with the Chicago outfit's local rackets. Fratto, who became a made man in 1998 during a Father's Day induction ceremony, was groomed by none other than Johnny No-Nose DeFranzo, one of the most powerful figures in the Chicago Mafia. In September 2009, Rudy the Chin Fratto found himself in hot water when he was hit with tax evasion charges, accused of failing to report nearly $200,000 in income from 2005. That same year, Fratto's name surfaced again in a civil lawsuit where things took a more sinister turn. Joseph Fosco, the son of the late Teamsters treasurer Armando Fosco, alleged that Fratto and Chicago mob boss John Johnny No-Nose DeFranzo, attempted to extort $400,000 from him. And during the investigation in one bid-rigging case, Fratto was caught on a wiretap boasting, "I'm the boss of this area around here, no one else." His confidence in his position suggests that, despite his legal troubles, Fratto continues to exert control over his territory, maintaining his influence in Chicago's criminal underworld. But he's not the only one keeping the outfit alive. Nikki Spoons Ferriola, who is currently in his late 40s, is no stranger to the Chicago underworld. Raised in the Mafia, he's the son of the late outfit boss Joe Ferriola, who passed away during heart surgery in 1989. Nikki Spoons holds the title of acting capo for the Southside Chinatown crew, with sources saying he'll be officially crowned captain once Frank Tootsie Babe Caruso steps down. People close to Ferriola reveal that he's always had ambitions of stepping into his father's shoes. After his dad's death, Nikki got an early taste of Mafia life, spending time with the old mob Don Joey Doves Ayupa after his release from prison in the 1990s. Nikki's notoriety only grew when he became the youngest defendant in the infamous 2005 Operation Family Secrets case, which indicted 14 Chicago mob figures for racketeering and 18 murders dating back over 30 years. Although Nikki Spoons wasn't charged with any violent crimes or linked to the mob hits, he did plead guilty to racketeering. His role in overseeing Southside gambling operations reportedly earned him $160,000 a month, and federal prosecutors claimed he pocketed a staggering $10 million over the course of the Family Secrets conspiracy. Now, the next boss we have is from a different gang, Labrada Span. Well, Four Corner Hustler is a street gang in Chicago, and according to the feds, this man is the leader of this gang. Authorities have labeled the gang as a ruthless crew of West Side robbers, drug dealers, and killers with a crime spree dating back to the mid-1990s. Span was convicted in 2021 on charges that included racketeering conspiracy and several murders tied to his leadership of the Four Corner Hustler street gang. The conviction links him to several violent crimes, including the high-profile 2003 murder of Latin Kings leader Rudy Fratto. That murder was so infamous that rapper DMX released a tribute track, Ayokato. Span has also pleaded guilty to charges of armed robbery and witness tampering in the past before that. Despite this, he has managed to dodge more severe punishments, as he was acquitted of murder twice in state court. In 2003, Span's crew, a faction born from the larger Four Corner Hustlers street gang, was believed to have been involved in at least 16 murders. Now, although he is serving a life sentence in prison still, he is very deadly and deeply involved in gang activities, just like he had been previously when he was in prison. Similarly, we have Jeff Fort. More infamously known as Abdul Malik Kaba, Jeff Fort is a notorious American mobster who once ruled Chicago's underworld. As the co-founder of the Black P. Stones gang and the mastermind behind its El Rukan faction, Fort's criminal empire was vast. His reign came crashing down in 1987 when he was handed a 168-year prison sentence for plotting terror attacks on U.S. soil, allegedly in exchange for weapons and a hefty $2.5 million from Libya. He was also convicted for ordering a hit in 1981 and drug trafficking in 1983. Now, after almost 40 years, the 77-year-old Fort begged mercy last year, claiming to be a frail grandfather who longs to be with his family. He made a heartfelt, handwritten appeal to a federal judge in Chicago last year. Fort hoped for some leniency under the First Step Act, which offers sentence reductions to elderly or ill inmates. However, U.S. District Judge John Tharp wasn't having it. He coldly dismissed Fort's request, standing firm on the sentence delivered back in 1987. Tharp said he saw no reason to change things. Fort remains locked away in a maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado, with little to no contact with the outside world. Authorities strongly suspect that he is plotting a way to secure his release and reclaim control of his gang. Next, we move back to Chicago outfit and talk about Frank Toots Caruso. He is a powerful capo within the Chicago outfit, leading the notorious 26th Street crew. He is the son of the late Frank Skids Caruso, a prominent figure in the Chicago underworld. Caruso has been involved in a range of illegal activities over the years, including extortion, gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering. As said earlier in the video, he is set to retire soon. He has a son, Frank Caruso Jr. Frank Caruso Jr. made national headlines for his involvement in the racially charged 1997 attack on 13-year-old Leonard Clark, who was brutally beaten while riding his bike through Armour Square. Caruso, who was 19 years old at the time of beating Leonard, was sentenced to 8 years in prison for the crime. He is also known for his infamous lineage as the great-grandson of the late Bruno Rodi Sr., one of Chicago's earliest organized crime leaders and the founder of what eventually became the notorious 26th Street mob crew. Adding to the intrigue, Junior Caruso's father, Frank Toots Caruso, was identified by the FBI as a potential threat to mob witness Nicholas Calabrese, the former outfit hitman hitman whose testimony rocked the Chicago underworld during the family secrets trial. As per sources, Frank Toots Caruso, father of Frank Caruso Jr. Yes, these names can get quite tricky. Well, although he has gotten old, he still remains active in the Chicago outfit. The next one is less trickier though, in terms of nomenclature. We have Louis Raynon, a convicted murderer, remains a key figure in the modern-day Chicago outfit. According to some sources, he was handpicked by the late James Jimmy I. Inendino for a leadership position within the crew before Jimmy's passing. Raynon, who is currently in his late 50s, is often seen at his legitimate business, the Roosevelt Gold Exchange in Cicero, but his influence in the underworld continues to grow. Back in 2012, 5 suspects carried out a bold robbery at his Roosevelt Gold Exchange in the west suburban town of Cicero. The suspects, believed to be in their late teens or early 20s, broke into the store and traumatized the lone clerk who was working that day. Raynon was not present during the incident, but witnessed the entire ordeal through the store's surveillance footage. The thieves made off with an estimated $40,000 worth of jewelry, leaving behind a shaken clerk and a story that quickly made its rounds in local circles. Although he seems to be running a legitimate business now, he is still the one to watch out for, as he is believed to be one of the few dozen individuals made by Mike Sarno during the 2000s, helping to lead the outfit's younger generation. His connections run deep in the crime world, with his relative Mario Raynon, a notorious outfit enforcer, recently released from prison, only adding to the speculation around Louis' growing power. Next, we talk about Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover was a feared gangster and leader, but he is best known as the founder of the notorious Chicago street gang, the Gangster Disciples. His reign of crime earned him 6 life sentences, which he currently serves at the ultra-secure ADX Florence prison in Colorado. Hoover was originally sentenced to life plus 200 years for a 1973 murder, but it didn't seem to solve all of his legal problems since a massive 17-year investigation has put him deeper. He was convicted in 1997 of conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, and operating a criminal enterprise from inside a state prison. That added another life sentence to his record. Just 2 years ago, he attempted to secure a break under the First Step Act. Although he tried it before in 2021 as well, U.S. District Judge Harry Leinenweber denied his request. However, the judge left the door open for Hoover to try again, fueling ongoing speculation about whether the once feared kingpin could ever see a change in his fate. Well, he is still imprisoned, as his release could seriously increase criminal activities in Chicago, and for your information, he is still active even after being locked up in prison. How? Well, although he claims he's left his gang life behind, according to the feds, he has appointed 2 gang leaders all while locked up. So how can authorities believe him? The 2 men he appointed made it clear that anyone who defied their power would face deadly consequences. Now be prepared for the next one, cause Donald Lee's gang is famous for brutal types of murders. Yes, we are talking about Donald Lee, famous for its brutal style of murders, still remains violent and active despite the arrest of its leader Donald Lee in 2021, which indicates the gang lord is still operating behind bars. Shortly after his arrest on racketeering conspiracy charges, Donald Lee found himself being questioned by a federal agent. The agent brought up the chilling 2018 execution-style murders of Donald Don Don Holmes Jr. and Diane Taylor. The couple had been lured to a West Side alley and brutally shot in the back of the head, allegedly by gang members who suspected Holmes of cooperating with the police. Though Lee wasn't physically present during the killings, as the feared leader of Wicked Town, a violent faction of the traveling vice lords, his infamous no-snitch policy was well known. Those who dared to break it knew they were signing their own death warrant, a brutal rule that had long kept the gang's secrets buried deep. Lee is now facing a mandatory life sentence in federal prison. In 2022, a federal jury found Donald Lee guilty of 6 murders after a 2-month racketeering conspiracy trial. The U.S. Attorney John Lausch remarked during a press conference following the verdict, "This was truly a remarkable case, highlighting the extensive evidence presented, over 100 witnesses and more than 1,000 exhibits." He added, "There's not many gang cases like this one," underscoring the case's exceptional nature. Now, some call the next on our list a rat, and you can decide for yourself. George Brown. Well, this man is an ex-mobster and is currently active, but not for the Mafia. George Brown was initially involved in debt collection for Chicago outfit under Paul Carparelli, but at some point in his life, which is unclear, he turned into an FBI informant and testified against both Mickey Davis and Carparelli, revealing he was hired to break the legs of R.J. Serpico, a car dealer from Melrose Park. His testimony was crucial in leading to the arrest of several outfit members and associates. However, he was a very notorious debt collector. A debtor once had a rather embarrassing moment when George Brown, a mob enforcer at that time with a 300-pound frame and a reputation for mixed martial arts, showed up to collect on a debt. The man was so terrified that he actually wet his pants. Brown took the man's car as partial payment and left. Soon after, Brown found himself working with the FBI. As a key informant, he wore a wire and allowed agents to eavesdrop on his conversations for nearly 2 years. His cooperation led to significant federal cases targeting top Chicago outfit figures. His visit to the Wisconsin businessman with the soggy pants was just one of many incidents, highlighted in the indictments that ultimately took down Carparelli and a dozen other mobsters from the already weakened Chicago mob. So we move forward to Robert Bavia. Robert Bavia, once a notable figure in the Ferriola crew, gained infamy for his role in the February 7, 1985, murder of bookmaker Hal C. Smith. Smith's body was discovered 3 days later stuffed in the trunk of his car. The body of Smith was discovered brutally murdered in the trunk of his own car, having been stabbed, strangled, and tortured. Smith was known for running a lucrative independent bookmaking business in Lake County, Illinois. By 1981, Smith had become aware that Marino and Salvatore D Delarentis, both affiliated with the Ferriola street crew, were pressuring independent bookmakers to pay street taxes or join their criminal enterprise. So initially, Smith resisted their demands. But by 1983, he and his partners began shelling out $3,000 a month to De Laurentiis to avoid further trouble. But it wasn't enough. And soon, the Mafia bosses started demanding more money, but Smith denied it, eventually paying with his life. Fast forward to 1990, and Bavia found himself in deep trouble again. He was indicted and later convicted in the infamous Good Ship Lollipop case. This high-profile case involved a slew of criminal heavyweights, including Ernest Infelice, Solly De Laurentiis, Harry Ailman, James Nicholas, and William DiDomenico. Bavia served 25 years behind bars before his release in 2016 and is now free again. Well, with such a history of murders, he seems to be keeping a low profile, just like the Cassano brothers. The Cassano brothers include 3 brothers, Dominic Menny Cassano, Gino Mean Gene Cassano, and the late Angelo the Angel Cassano, who died in 2018. The 2 brothers are still alive, however, keeping a relatively low profile as they have not surfaced in any notable events since 1993, in which Dominic and Angelo were convicted of an attempted murder. 2 Cassano brothers, Dominic and Angelo, faced charges for attempting to murder Joseph Urso in the parking lot of his Northbrook Auto Parts business, but were convicted of lesser offenses instead. Cook County Circuit Court Judge Gerald T. Rohrer found Angelo Cassano of Northlake and Dominic Cassano of Palatine guilty of aggravated battery, though the motive behind the attack on Urso remains unclear. Urso, a Lake Forest millionaire, was viciously beaten and kicked on March 10, 1992, by 2 men who ambushed him in broad daylight. During his testimony, Urso recalled that during the beating, Angelo Cassano grabbed him and chillingly said, "I'm going to kill you." Despite the dramatic accusations, both Angelo and Dominic claimed they had never even been to Northbrook at the time of the attack. Nonetheless, the brothers were arrested 4.5 months later. In 2021, Gino Cassano was charged in an indictment with conspiring to collect a debt through extortion. However, the charges were dropped due to a lack of evidence. Well, the Cassano family still remains a subject of intrigue and speculation in criminal circles. Next up we have Michael Jaws Giorango. He has long been tied to the old Chicago Heights mob scene. Known for his shady dealings, he was convicted twice on bookmaking charges years ago. One of the bookmaking operations he was involved with allegedly used threats of bombings, beatings, and robbery to collect unpaid debts back in 1989. In 1990, he was sentenced to prison, serving 4 years behind bars. But his criminal activities didn't stop there. In 2004, Giorango was caught again, this time for running a nationwide prostitution ring out of a Florida hotel he co-owned. The hotel's financing, it reportedly came from loans given by Giannoulias's family bank. While no evidence has surfaced suggesting that Giannoulias or the bank knew about the illegal activities, the connection fueled whispers in both criminal and political circles. This resulted in a sentence of 6 months of intermittent confinement and 3 years of probation for Giorango. Then 2010, financial trouble struck, and he filed for bankruptcy protection, listing his assets and liabilities between $500,000 and $1 million. However, the case was ultimately dismissed in 2013, fueling further speculation about his ever-evolving fortunes. As of today, Giorango is keeping a low profile. According to some rumors on social media, he is believed to have died in 2016, but there is no official confirmation of this. Next, we have another member of the outfit family, Dino Marino. although Dino Marino, the son of legendary outfit boss Louis Tomatoes Marino, and driver for current top boss Salvatore D Delarentis, has not been charged with murders, he has been found scamming the government quite a few times. For example, in the early 1990s, he was a health department inspector for the town of Cicero. However, according to federal prosecutors, the real extent of his duties seemed to be nothing more than picking up his paycheck every 2 weeks at town hall. Well, that sounds like a dream job. Health Department Director Mary Paris, who held the summer of 1992, and longtime Commissioner Dr. Ferdinand Kaunas were ready to testify that they had never seen Marino in the office and had no idea he was even on the payroll. In January 2000, Dino Marino admitted to scamming the town of Cicero, Illinois, out of over $130,000 while serving as a ghost employee in the health department. His guilty plea made waves, and he was ultimately sentenced to a year in federal prison. After serving his time, Marino was quietly released on May 29, 2001. Meanwhile, on a different front, we have Adan Salgado. Well, Adan, originally born in Mexico, does not belong to a traditional Chicago Mafia family, but he has lived for years in Chicago, allowing him to run his drug business in Chicago. He is supposedly the leader of the Guerreros Unidos drug cartel and infamously known as El Tomate. Salgado has been detained in Chicago since 2022. He has admitted to smuggling heroin to Chicago by concealing it in passenger buses and then laundering hundreds of thousands of dollars back to Mexico. Well, earlier this year, he pleaded guilty to U.S. District Judge Matthew Kennelly for drug conspiracy and money laundering. He is linked to the high-profile disappearance of 43 students in Mexico nearly a decade ago. Casarubias revealed that in 2014 he shipped 52 kilograms of heroin to Chicago and had $600,000 smuggled back to him on a passenger bus. Adan and his brothers, Sidronio, Angel, and Mario, ran the Guerreros Unidos cartel. Though the brothers were born in Mexico, Adan and Mario spent years in Chicago, quietly working at Mama Luna's Pizzeria on Fullerton Avenue in Belmont Cragen. Now, although Adan Casarubias Salgado, being in custody, can't control the cartel directly, he is still influencing his cartel's drug operations in Chicago. It would be interesting to see his next big move. We move to Chicago's public enemy number one, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Guzman, aka El Chapo, is often regarded as the greatest drug lord in history, with the US DEA even calling him the godfather of the drug trade. They believe he eclipsed Pablo Escobar in terms of influence and reach. In 2013, the Chicago Crime Commission declared Guzman as public enemy number one due to the extensive impact of his criminal empire in Chicago. The last individual to be given such infamy was Al Capone back in 1930. On February 12, 2019, Guzman, aka El Chapo, was convicted on all charges, and by July 17, 2019, he was handed a life sentence along with an additional 30 years. He was also ordered to forfeit over $12.6 billion. El Chapo stays behind bars, but according to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, his deadly Sinaloa cartel still continues to operate, especially in Chicago. And thanks to Joaquin Guzman Lopez, who recently made headlines when he kidnapped the co-founder of the Sinaloa cartel, El Mayo, the fight for power inside the Sinaloa cartel has just started. Ismael El Mayo Zambada was tricked by El Chapo's son and arrested by the U.S. authorities thanks to his treachery. Now, when it comes to the next one, we are talking about a ghost. Gary Gagliano. Gagliano is the nephew of Joseph Gagliano, who was a close associate of Jackie Cerrone. Now, what makes him different from other mobsters is his unknown appearance. He remains the most lethal mafia boss, concealed by his mysterious appearance. He rarely makes headlines, which complicates matters for the authorities. What we do know about him is he is a member of the Elmwood Park crew, serving as an acting captain. This crew is involved in illegal gambling businesses, collection of street taxes, extortion payments, violence, intimidation, making of juice loans, and collection of such loans. Like the Casano family, Gagliano has deep connections within the outfit. He operates just below the rumored Elmwood Park faction boss, Rudy the Chin Fratto, who has been given considerable authority to manage Elmwood Park. This arrangement led to the crew being split into two factions, one under acting Captain Gagliano and the other under the long-established outfit figure Anthony Tony D. Dote. Sources from the FBI in the 1990s reveal some intriguing details about Gagliano. It turns out he was quite the figure in his crew, handing out juice money to well-known members and even making juice loans. Not only that, but he was also a high-ranking lieutenant, overseeing a burglary group for the crew. He is probably the most deadly mafia boss active because of his secrecy and silent approach. The last one we have today is Paul Coralu. The PK crew, named after its leaders Robert Panazzo Sr. and Paul Coralu, operated under the guise of law enforcement to rob drug houses on Chicago's south and west sides. But Paul Coralu is currently serving an 18-year prison sentence for racketeering under RICO charges. Coralu pleaded guilty to a felony racketeering charge in 2016 and is currently incarcerated at Stateville Penitentiary. His wife, Maria Coralu, was also implicated in the sweeping investigation known as Operation Crew Cut. She was, however, sentenced to court supervision. This probe was the second racketeering case pursued by Cook County State's Attorney Anita Alvarez under a 2012 state statute inspired by the federal racketeering law targeting the Mafia. The investigation by Chicago police and federal agents began in October 2013 after Panazzo and his associates allegedly attempted to murder a state witness. This witness was set to testify against crew members involved in a kidnapping and home invasion. Prosecutors claim that Panazzo and Coralu led the PK street crew, which engaged in a range of criminal activities, including home invasions, armed robberies, residential burglaries, insurance fraud, and prostitution. They reportedly exploited gang connections to target drug dealers, using fake police badges to pilfer narcotics. However, Coralu has remained active through his partner Robert Panazzo, who used to collect interest on juice loans. Unfortunately for Paul, Robert was sentenced in 2019 to 14 years. But Paul has a strong affiliation with Albert Vina, who is probably next in line to lead the Chicago outfit, which means Paul Coralu still controls the PK crew. So this ends today's video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like and subscribe button, and we have a lot more content like this. Just click any of the cards on your screen right now and continue watching.